Hello everyone and welcome back to the Chess24 Legends of Chess tournament with a truly spectacular game from round 3. It's game 4 of the match Vasyl Ivanchuk versus Ding Liren, and this has been brought to my attention only recently. It seems that I've constantly been spelling it Vasyl Ivanchuk when it's actually Vasyl. It's the Ukrainian version of the name, and it's the one, of course, he himself prefers. So I feel kind of silly that I've been, writing it differently and pronouncing it differently all this time, but I never knew this, so sorry about that. And we are going to do it like this from this point onwards. And this is, it was truly a great match. I mean, I can't show all the games since there are 4 games at least being played every day. Between 2 players and even more if they go into Armageddon. So I can't show all of them, but I will try to show the nicest ones. And this one is really incredible. In game 1, Ding had a brilliant winning tactic. He missed it and the game ended in a draw. Then Vasyl took the win in the second game. Ding retaliated in the third game, and this is now game 4. Whoever wins the match, or if it's a draw, we go into Armageddon. So let's check it out. Vasyl with the white pieces opens with d4. We have knight to f6 by Ding, c4, e6, and now knight to c3, inviting Ding to a nice Nimzo-Indian, which he does go for. So bishop to b4, the Nimzo-Indian defense is on the board, and we have knight to f3. The 3 knights variation of the Nimzo. We have castles by Ding, and now e3. E3. And here, the most common move here, as it is in most lines of the Nimzo, is d5. However, Ding goes for the very old line bishop captures on c3. It's been tried, it's not really an old line, it's sort of a line that was played very, very few times and attempted a couple of times in modern chess. Bishop captures on c3. So he tries to catch Vasyl off guard, b captures on c3, and now d6. But now just bishop to d3, continuing development, and now e5, already threatening e4 to win some material here. So there is one game in the database where knight to d2 was played, but here Vasyl goes for e4, and it is already as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So what did Ding have in mind here? We have e captures on d4, c captures on d4, and the rook to e8. Vasyl's king is still in the center of the board, so it does make sense to try and keep him there for as long as possible. Puts pressure on the e4 pawn. However, we have a kingside castle, sacrificing this pawn. And what's the compensation here for the sacrifice pawn? Well, black still has to develop a lot of his pieces, so it will take time to grab that pawn. But Ding goes for it. We have knight captures on e4, and there is nothing wrong with capturing the 4. It is, in fact, the strongest move recommended by the engine. We have rook to e1, now with a double attack here, and knight just goes back to f6. We have rook captures on e8, knight captures on e8, and now bishop to g5. Asking Ding, do you want to go back? Do you want to play something like f6? Do you want to move the queen? So a lot of things are possible here. For example, if knight f6, you maybe run into this pin, but it's not really the pin that's important, because you can just trade here and threaten checkmate with queen e2. And once this is prevented, rook e1. Again, every move you develop, you threaten checkmate. So bishop d7, and now you could play this, but it's looks very, very ugly for black. You have some very, very clean moves here for white. You're going to play d5 at some point, grab more space in the center. And it should be playable. However, for a rapid game, it's hard to say if black will feel very comfortable here. So instead, after this bishop g5 move, we have f6 by Ding, pushing the bishop back. We have bishop back to d2, and now knight to d7. This knight is now coming to f8 to add more support to the h7 pawn, as you know that Vasyl is coming after you. So queen c2, putting pressure on h7, and knight f8, defending the h7 pawn. And now rook to e1. So just completing development, and black still has to figure out how to develop his pieces. So c6, preparing to strike in the center with d5, and now even a4. And here Vasyl shows that it's not all that easy to develop with black. You still need a way of just completing development. For example, if bishop to g4, you just run into knight to h4, and it's just, again, what are you gonna do here? For example, if rook b8, you maybe start pushing some pawns or something. h3, you push the bishop back, and knight f5. And now with this knight on f5, it's just a very, very deadly square. Rook is coming to e7. After that, you will have a lot of pressure here. So it's a very difficult position to play for black. So after this a4 move, we have knight to c7 by Ding, now grabbing hold of the e6 square, but now d5, not allowing any piece to land on e6. We have c5 by Ding, and now knight to h4, as planned, going after this f5 square. So here we have knight to a6. Ding wants to bring his knight over to b4 to put pressure on the queen and the bishop to win at least one of the bishops, as you either will lose the light square bishop or you will have to give up the dark square bishop. So here we have bishop to f5. Playing knight to f5 right away also looks very appealing. However, this runs into knight to b4, and now you either lose the bishop pair or you go for knight e7 check, but then black can just capture it. And after rook captures, you can capture the queen, captures, and now let's say b6, you're gonna develop your bishop, bring the rook into the game, and it's a pretty good position for black. He will not be worried. So here instead, after knight to a6, we have bishop to f5. He wants to win the f5 outpost for the knight. He doesn't want this bishop to be traded for knight. Still knight to b4 by Ding, and queen to e4 now. And here just bishop to d7. Asking white, what do you want to do? If you capture here, I will nicely recapture and then bring my rook into the game. But other than that, I'm also just threatening to pick up the a4 pawn and then create a nice passed a pawn for myself. So here, Vasyl goes for rook to e3. He says, I'm not interested in the pawn. I'm just going to do a nice rook lift, maybe rook g3, rook h3, depending on what black plays. And here, again, it's very hard to decide what to do. If you capture something like bishop captures on f5, after knight captures, it's game over for black. There's no playing this for black. Whatever you play, let's say queen d7, queen g4, and there is too much pressure here. You're threatening this. Well, okay, first you're threatening this to get the queen away from the defense of this pawn, and then it's just game over. But also if you try and stop this, just knight h6 check and you pick up the queen. So very, very difficult position to play for black. So instead, Ding just went for bishop captures on a4. And this is the most, of all the poisoned pawns, this guy is the most poisoned. As now the game is completely lost for Ding, and it's actually a forced checkmate in 7 moves. So feel free to pause the video here while I give you a couple of seconds, find the winning idea for white, as it's just spectacular. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting the mating pattern, as this is not an easy one to find. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's bishop captures on h7. And now the reason why it's so beautiful is that after knight captures on h7, you get queen e6 check, and now wherever the king goes, knight g6 is checkmate. So this is checkmate, as the queen now covers this. Nice checkmate by the knight. And also if the king goes to h8, still the same thing, just check, it's mate, queen covers this, the knight blocks the king. So Ding of course cannot capture the bishop, he has to move it. And where are you going to move it? So king to f7, h8 is also not very pleasant. Because if you go to h8, then it's the very unpleasant knight to g6 check. And now after knight captures and g6 bishop captures, now queen is coming to finish the job. Whatever you play doesn't really matter. You can try something like f5. Now even rook to h3 is sufficient. King to g8, queen e6 check, king f8, and now this will be checkmate. So really, really incredible stuff. So, point being, after bishop captures here, king to f7 by Ding, but now comes knight to f5. And this is the move that was not easy to find, because the bishop now covers these two squares, these two escape squares for the king, and there isn't much you can do to prevent checkmate. So, if you try something like queen to, let's say, I don't know, queen to e8, knight to d6 is mate, because again the bishop covers this, the knight checks, and the queen prevents the king from reaching the e file. If you play something like queen to d7, let's say you try and keep an eye on this pawn, maybe try and bring the rook into the game with something like this, as the bishop and queen still cover that, doesn't really matter. Queen e6 check, captures, and this is now mate. The knight nicely covers the rook, and the bishop still covers this. So after this knight to f5 move, Ding tried the only thing that's left, just eliminate this guy that's preventing us from escaping. But now comes the third brilliancy, another bolt from the blue, knight to h6 check. And it was in this position that Ding resigned the game, as now there's nothing more to be done here. If the knight is captured with g captures, well, then it's just queen captures, the rook prevents the king from reaching the e file, king f8, and now the crushing idea, rook to g3. Rook g3, now there is no defense, rook to g8 will be mate in 1, whatever black plays. So we can just make a silly move just to deliver mate, rook to g8, and that's just it. And the other thing after knight to h6 check, if you don't capture the knight, if you just move the king, let's say king f8, it's the same idea. Just queen captures here with the threat of queen g8 checkmate, and there's nothing you can do. If you capture the knight, we get the exact same position where the rook to g3 just finishes the game. So whatever you play, let's now play another silly move, just rook to g8, and this is checkmate. And so I don't forget, I would like to take this opportunity to award Vasyl Ivanchuk once again in this tournament a nice Morphy head. Oops, there we go. So nice Morphy head for good old Chucky. Brilliant attacking game, and once didn't grab that a4 pawn, it was just all over. And it's not easy to find all these patterns. I mean, this is something, of course, for Vasyl, this is something he knows, that because he saw this mate probably a million times, and he recognizes the patterns. But you know, just to spot it right, you know, just like that, it's pretty crazy stuff. But yeah, wonderful game. So I really do hope you enjoyed it. And these are the standings after round 3. So let's just check that out before we head into round 4. So here they are. Whoops, layers. Magnus Carlsen and Peter Svidler leading the tournament with 9 full points each. Then we have Jan Nepomniachtchi with 8 points, Boris Gelfand with 6, with 4 points we have Vasyl Ivanchuk and Vladimir Kramnik, with 3 Anish Giri, Peter Leko with 2, and still with 0 points Vishwanathan Anand and Ding Liren. So crazy tournament, younger players versus the chess legends. Really enjoying this one. Hope you guys are as well, and we are going to continue in this fashion. So once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Ross Martin, Will Rubinstein, Ivan Lavrov, Isaac Drum, and Jaco Hans for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Chess24 Legends of Chess, checking up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your Friday.